We all want to believe our parents are perfect, especially when it comes to their finances. But what do you do when you uncover a shocking secret that proves their entire opulent lifestyle was a meticulously crafted lie? Join me as I recount the incredible and incredibly awkward journey of catching my parents faking their way to riches and the unbelievable fallout that changed everything. Marcus thought he had hit the family lottery. Growing up, his parents seemed to have it all: the massive house in the gated community, luxury cars in the driveway, designer clothes filling walk-in closets, and exotic vacations that made his friends' families look modest by comparison. His father, David, claimed to be a successful real estate investor who had made it big in commercial properties. His mother, Patricia, presented herself as a boutique owner who catered to wealthy clients. Together, they painted the picture of a power couple who had climbed their way to the top through hard work and smart investments. For 23 years, Marcus lived in this bubble of assumed prosperity. He attended private schools, drove expensive cars his parents bought him, and never questioned where the money came from. Why would he? The evidence was everywhere, from the marble countertops in their kitchen to the monthly statements from their investment portfolios that his father would casually leave on the dining room table. The first crack in the facade appeared during Marcus's final semester of college. He was applying for graduate school and needed his parents' tax returns for financial aid applications. Simple request, routine procedure. But when he asked his father for the documents, David's reaction was anything but routine. "You don't need to worrying about that," his father said, his usual confident demeanor suddenly shifting to something more guarded. "We'll handle the financial aid process ourselves." Marcus found this odd. His parents had always been proud of their financial success, often bragging about their income at dinner parties. Why the sudden secrecy about tax documents? The second red flag came when Marcus tried to use his parents' address for a credit check required by his potential graduate program. The results showed something that made his blood run cold. The house he'd grown up in, the symbol of his family's success, was 3 months behind on mortgage payments and facing foreclosure proceedings. Marcus's world turned upside down in that moment, questioning everything he thought he knew about his family. The solid foundation of financial security he'd built his entire identity around was suddenly as unstable as quicksand. His first instinct was denial. There had to be a mistake in the credit report. Maybe identity theft or a clerical error by the mortgage company. Successful real estate investors like his father didn't fall behind on house payments. Boutique owners like his mother didn't let their primary residence go into foreclosure, but the documentation was clear and undeniable. Not only were they behind on the mortgage, but there were liens against the property from multiple creditors. The family's financial situation wasn't just unstable, it was catastrophic. Marcus spent 3 sleepless nights trying to rationalize what he'd discovered. Maybe his parents were going through a temporary rough patch. Maybe they had their money tied up in investments and were dealing with a short-term cash flow problem. Maybe there was a perfectly reasonable explanation that would make everything make sense again. The desperate need for answers drove him to something he'd never done before: investigate his own family's finances. What Marcus discovered when he started cross-referencing bank statements, credit card bills, and loan documents was a financial house of cards that defied belief. The evidence laid bare a level of deception that had been years in the making. The investment portfolio statements his father left casually around the house, completely fabricated. Marcus found the template software on his father's computer, along with dozens of fake statements showing fictional gains on non-existent investments. His mother's boutique. It existed, but barely. The financial records showed it had been losing money consistently for 5 years. The wealthy clients Patricia claimed to serve were largely fictional, created to explain the designer clothes and accessories she was actually purchasing on credit cards with astronomical interest rates. The luxury cars in their driveway were all leased, with payments that consumed nearly 60% of their actual combined income. The exotic vacations were funded entirely through cash advances on credit cards that were already maxed out. But the most shocking discovery was the web of loans they'd taken out using their house as collateral, second mortgages, home equity lines of credit, and personal loans, all to maintain the appearance of wealth while digging themselves deeper into financial ruin. Marcus found records showing his parents owed more than $800,000 across various creditors, while their actual annual income was less than $90,000. The mathematics were simple and terrifying. There was no way out of this debt spiral. The fake bank statements showed balances in the hundreds of thousands. The real bank statements showed overdraft fees and declined transactions. The contrast between the fantasy and reality was so stark it would have been comedic if it wasn't so devastating. Asterisk, armed with undeniable evidence, Marcus knew he had to confront his parents. The raw, honest discussion that followed filled the air with immediate tension that seemed to suck the oxygen out of their elaborate living room. He chose a Sunday evening when they were all home, spreading the financial documents across the same dining room table where his father used to display those fake investment statements. "We need to talk about this," Marcus said, his voice steadier than he felt. All of this. The initial response was exactly what he expected: denial, deflection, and anger. His father accused him of snooping through private documents. His mother claimed he was misunderstanding the complexities of their business finances. But as Marcus methodically presented piece after piece of evidence, their defensive walls began to crumble. The fake statements, the unpaid bills, the foreclosure notices, the credit card debt, it was all laid out in black and white, impossible to explain away. Finally, his mother broke down. "We just wanted to give you the best life possible," Patricia sobbed. "We wanted you to have everything we never had growing up. We thought we could figure it out, that the businesses would eventually make enough money to cover everything." His father's confession was even more heartbreaking. "It started small," David admitted. "Just a few credit cards to help with cash flow while we were getting established. But then your school expenses, the house payment, maintaining the image that brought in clients, it all snowballed. We kept thinking we'd turn the corner next month, next year." The emotional aftermath was unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced. The parents he'd looked up to his entire life suddenly seemed small and human and devastatingly flawed. They weren't malicious villains who had intentionally deceived him. They were scared people who had gotten in over their heads and couldn't find a way out. But understanding their motivations didn't make the betrayal hurt any less. Every family dinner where they discussed his trust fund, every conversation about his future where they'd assured him money would never be a concern, every moment of his life where he'd felt secure and supported, all of it had been built on elaborate lies. The immediate practical consequences were overwhelming. The house would be lost within months. His parents' credit was destroyed beyond repair. The cars would be repossessed. Everything that had defined their family's identity was about to disappear. Marcus realized that at 23, he was suddenly the most financially stable person in his family. His part-time job and student loans made him richer than his parents, who had spent decades pretending to be wealthy. The hardest part wasn't just discovering the lies. It was figuring out how to rebuild a relationship with the people who had shaped his entire understanding of success, security, and family trust. As Marcus sat in that expensive living room, surrounded by the evidence of his family's financial deception, he couldn't help but wonder how many other families were living similar lies. How many people were one credit report away from discovering that everything they believed about their lives was carefully constructed fiction? The conversation that night lasted until sunrise, and it was just the beginning of the most difficult period any of them had ever faced. Because once the truth comes out, there's no going back to the comfort of beautiful lies. What happened next would test every assumption Marcus had about family, forgiveness, and what it really means to rebuild your life from the ground up.